What's going on, everybody, and welcome to a news and notes episode of the Pitstop Pals. Lots to get to. It is race week as we head to France for the French Grand Prix. That's very exciting news there, and lots of news from the previous week heading into this week. We'll get to it all on your Pitstop Pals podium, brought to you by Mobile One and Mr. Lube. Have your Mobile One synthetic oil change completed at Mr. Lube. Same-day oil change and tire service with no appointment necessary. We'll have a trivia question a little bit later on and announce the winner from our last episode as well. So if you want to win a gift certificate for up to $100 for Mr. Lube and one of these sweet Mobile One racing hats, make sure you stick around for that. Gager, what's up, buddy? It was tough not having any race this weekend when we've been treated to a few doozies.
I actually watched a little bit of the Formula E race yesterday a little bit. So kind of cool because I think there's actually even a charging part of the track where if they drive over it charges the cars. So
like on Super Mario Kart?
Yeah. Yeah. So and the sound of the cars is really cool. Like electric is pretty neat. So yeah, I got a little bit of a fix there. Watched a little
How much did you watch of that? I have to know. Like the whole race?
25 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Well, I watched until it was over. Yeah, I caught it about halfway through, so it was a little bit late. I didn't even know it was on. So, but Monday race week, there's no better feeling. I think waking up on a Monday. It's tough enough on a Monday, but when I know it's a race week, I get way more excited. Last Monday sucked. This Monday, going to France, this is going to be great. I had
somebody text into my show this morning. It said, Dusty, you know what really was not good this weekend? Not having a Formula One race to talk about. I was like, I know. Luckily, they provided us with a bunch of different storylines coming through the week, and that's what we're going to get to today with your Pitstop Pals podium. And once again, a news and notes episode here. And if you have any questions, hey, if you're hopping on the live stream and you want to fire any questions our way, Gage and I will do the best we can here on the Pitstop Pals, a podcast by F1 fans for F1 fans. Many of us are just like us. We are just like many of you watching here as well. But as we mentioned, it is the Pitstop Pals podium, and like I said, have your Mobile One synthetic oil change completed at Mr. Lube. And Gager at the top of the podium, and maybe it's foreshadowing here, Mercedes. Looks like they're bringing significant aero upgrades and a lot of buzz here that they're going to make it a three-team race down the stretch here, or at least over the next couple of races heading into the summer break.
Well, Dusty, we said before how has Mercedes turned the corner here, and I think we can actually say over these last three races, there's a massive shift in their overall race pace compared to where it was before. So, and with my going into the analysis of F1 TV and what everyone's saying is they really look to Mercedes to possibly battle for pole or finish winning the race. So, but the thing is, they don't know which driver is going to do it. They think the car is ready for it, but we're going to have to wait and see what driver is going to be up there. And if it gets into a kind of position of, do we switch spots or something with Mercedes to get back in the hunt of things? So really exciting. This track, from all accounts, from what everyone is talking about, it's very smooth. Lots of straightaways, lots of straight speed, and that's where Mercedes have made that gain. It's still going to be tough to snag the Red Bulls and Ferraris in this case, but man, I can't wait for FP1.
I was just gonna say we got practice coming up in just a few days, and we're gonna be very excited to see exactly what has happened here with this Mercedes machine. And I said, maybe they can get themselves back in the mix here for France and Belgium, and then you get summer break. And I wonder how much of this is Ferrari and Red Bull waiting to see what Mercedes does, Gager, and then is there a response coming when we get going again in late August, do you think?
That's a good point, Dusty, because the one thing that Red Bull really has to do, because if we look at the last race, what happened with the rain on day two, it kind of cleared up the track and got rid of some of that grip, and Red Bull saw massive tire degradation compared to Ferrari and stuff. So that was Christian Horner was saying that that's something that they really had to look into last week, because they definitely don't want to have that come down to the last few laps and run out of tire if that's one of the cases. But yeah, I think Red Bull and Ferrari have been kind of battling each other too much to really notice Mercedes a little bit. I'm sure there's they're definitely a blip on the radar, Dusty. But let's fingers crossed that this really puts a monkey wrench into their plans as well.
The other thing we need to discuss when it comes to Mercedes, Gager, you mentioned it very briefly there as we started. Which driver is it going to be for Mercedes if one of them is going to get back in the mix? And early in the season, it was George Russell with a steady diet of fifths. Like, he's been very consistent in that aspect of it. And everybody's wondering, what's wrong with Lewis Hamilton? What's wrong with this car? Well, as the cars got better, Lewis Hamilton is the guy who has appeared to be getting a little bit better, which led to some interesting comments from George Russell since the last race as well, being held back at Williams, essentially. That was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little complaining of the Williams principal, I forget her name, just doing he actually said she did a great job with the contract and just made it ironclad where he couldn't get out of it. So and it's funny how, and I think we were texting about this, it's funny how Lewis starts doing a little bit better, and all of a sudden Russell starts complaining about old stuff and that he should have been at Mercedes a long time ago, and he would have been doing even better at this point, or just kind of like, the big dog's back in the game here, which was kind of funny, but
which kind of makes me think that if Mercedes all of a sudden has a car that can compete, you can't tell me team decisions aren't going to be in favor of Lewis Hamilton still. I mean, the guy's just coming off an all-time run here.
Yeah. Well, and also Lewis did say that he said that Russell is the driver to bring Mercedes into that next era of racing when he's eventually gone, right? He said he has all the qualities of being a great team leader, and they've said great things about each other, and Russell saying that he's amazed at what Lewis does and puts in, and from all accounts, there has been a lot of extra work in the simulators for both of them. But it's just the dynamics a little bit changing. I think Russell was the golden boy there, and now with Lewis with a few podiums in a row, there's a little bit more competition.
It's so funny how it was. The perception of it all changes, from week to week. But I do want to see both of them racing for like third place or second, or even hell, right at the top, and see what some of the decisions will be made. But that's a top spot on the Pitstop Pals podium. Mercedes looking to be more competitive here, and they have been. They've been working their way back into it here, and now in France, we'll see what they're able to bring to the table. Second spot on the podium this week, brought to you by Mobile One and Mr. Lube. Let's go to McLaren, where there's been a bunch of different storylines from McLaren. Lando Norris saying he had to adjust his driving style because of the car that they brought to the table this year. Zach Brown saying that he thought McLaren was on the way up. When he took over, he realized it was still on the way down, and there was a bunch to build back up. And then I think I saw one article this week that said Sebastian Vettel among 3 possibilities to replace Daniel Ricciardo, which would be quite the scene as well. So, Gager, of all this McLaren discussion, which story pops out to you as the most concerning or the biggest headline?
The biggest concerning for me was when the first rumors came up of looking for possibly a replacement for Ricciardo, just with his struggles. He came out the next race and did quite well. I think it was a 6th place finish for him, right? So it's kind of dropped off a bit, still finished in the points in a few races, but still just not looking great on track, I think. And we've watched that Drive to Survive series and how everyone talked so highly about Ricciardo. Yeah. And I think we both, Dusty, we've been sitting here waiting for him to actually show us something, right? So, and just to hear the Vettel comment, and I don't know. I think Zach Brown, he did it before the beginning of the season, lit the fire under Ricciardo, saw a really good performance the next race. Ricciardo said that I think his contract goes through to next year. So he says, I'm not leaving this contract. I'm going to be in F1 next year. And I just think he's just kind of lighting the fire again. And let's see what this McLaren can do on a different track. I think this track suits on the McLaren car a little bit better too.
Well, McLaren's very interesting because if you look at the constructor standings right now, you've got Red Bull at 359. You got Ferrari about 50 points back, 56 points back at 303. You've got Mercedes, who's been consistently in the mix there. They're at 237. So it's essentially a 2-horse race, and then Mercedes is just kind of locked into the 3rd spot right now because nobody else has even over 100 points. Mercedes at 237, so they're a lot closer to the top 2 than they are to the rest of the pack. And it is McLaren and Alpine sitting at 81. Now, Gage, coming into the year, I would have not expected McLaren to be in the top 3 anyway, so they're sitting here in 4th. So do you think the disappointment is the fact that they're not up there with the big 3, or do you think it's the fact that Alpine is right there with them for fighting for 4th? Because I think if you told McLaren at the beginning of the year, hey, you're going to finish 4th behind Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, they probably would have said, yeah, that's probably where we should be. Now it's it's a disaster and everything. I feel like it's because they're battling for 4th with a team like Alpine.
Well, and just seeing the pace of Alpine more.
Yeah,
so
it looks like a better
else,
car,
right? Like they look way better. Both their drivers finishing in the points again. Maybe it's okay, the positioning, I think, Dusty, but I don't think they thought that the gap difference would be as big as it actually is. Like, what's Mercedes at 237, and then you drop down to 81 points, right? But they're tied with Alpine right now, and man, Fernando Alonso's becoming one of my favorite drivers this year. Like the finger wagging on Yuki Tsunoda, saying no, and putting him in the grass there. Like, and Fernando's just lurking in the weeds, like in those some of those, like when we saw 5 cars wide there, and he's right in there. He's in the mix. Yeah, this car is definitely in the mix. So. And it's Alpine going back to their home race, so there's always that extra little fire that they'll probably have this weekend too, being at their home track and stuff. But man, this is really interesting, that this middle pack, because I do think if I'm a betting man, and as you know, I do tend to dabble a little bit, I would bet that Alpine finishes ahead of McLaren by the end of the season.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's something to follow. And obviously it'll be leading to, that's the end of Danny Ricciardo, as opposed to McLaren in general as a team, because Lando is way below expectations so far this year as well. And I think that's the one thing helping Danny Ricciardo, that Norris hasn't been able really to do anything in that McLaren car either. I think that's a big deal.
Don't you think, like you look back and he went to McLaren and from Renault, right? But that car, I think it suited Ricciardo better. Like, it's funny, if you could have just reverse it and keep him in that and be in an Alpine now, he would probably be doing a lot better.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, actually. You're right. The all-time backfire. That's a tough one. 3rd spot on the Pitstop Pals podium, brought to you by Mobil 1 Synthetic Oil, and you can get those oil changes done at Mr. Lube. I do want to quickly just go to the Alonso comments. He was asked a little bit this week about younger drivers coming up, and he laid it out, and he said, some of the older drivers that aren't going very fast right now are holding others back. And I don't know who specifically he was talking about, because he said, not me though. I'm having a nice year, which he is. I mean, we talked about him. He's moving pretty well in that car, but maybe he's talking about Danny Ricciardo a little bit, or some of these other guys out there who've been around the game for a little bit and maybe holding back some of these younger guys who are in different F1 teams, kind of the George Russell thing we talked about earlier, being locked in with Williams and can't get out there. But you said it. I mean, watching Alonso drive and the way he's been acting and some of the things that he's saying, and the fact that he's aggressive when he's out there trying to track people down, it makes it exciting to watch. You want to find out where Alonso is and follow along with him on the racetrack pretty much anytime he's out there. He's aggressive, and I like that. So I love these comments too. Like, I'm like, I don't know, man. I guess overall Verstappen might be the bad boy of F1, and he carries it with the success that he's had. But I'm okay with Alonso kind of being this crazy uncle of Formula One. Isn't that kind of what he comes across as?
Little cousin Eddie in Alonso a little bit, yeah, for sure. It's I think it's great seeing him battle up front, and just his comments of the older drivers. That's great, because I don't think he'd be, if they ironed out some of the just reliability issues with what's happened to him. Like, he's had cars fail on him. They had that one stop where they had to keep the tire covers on because they had a mechanical failure with the car. So, man, it's funny, if they were a little bit more reliable, I don't think he'd be complaining about these older drivers, because he'd be up at the front more, to tell you the truth. It seems like he's had issues and then had to pit, and then having to pass, get into some some DRS trains that haven't helped him at races for sure. That's probably the only reason he's complaining about this, is the reliability of the car. So yeah, it's I'd love to see what happens with that car on this track this weekend, to see if they're like, we saw him almost finish on pole already this year. I'd look to him to do something special too.
That is your Pitstop Pals podium, brought to you by Mobile One and Mr. Lube. Have your synthetic Mobile One oil change completed at Mr. Lube. Same day oil changes and tire service with no appointment necessary. A couple other things still to get to here, Gager. Before we dive into France and just a quick look ahead, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and something else just popped up on it as well. Keanu Reeves is currently working on a documentary about Formula One for Disney Plus. We saw what happened with F1 over on Netflix side of things. Now Keanu Reeves is working on a documentary about F1 for Disney Plus. He's going to host the series, and he's already been conducting interviews. You know my love of Keanu Reeves. He can do no wrong. Duke Kaboom is one of the greatest cartoon characters of all time, and everything else Keanu Reeves touches turns to gold, especially as of late. I like this. You know what? Another platform, another Formula One project. I don't think anybody's going to say no to more Formula One content right now.
Gosh, no. When I heard it, I was shocked, but then you saw him, and like, we've seen celebrities in the pits, but he was in every pit crew. Like, from Aston Martin, he went to Mercedes, He went to Red Bull. Like, so usually they just take a side. Like, you saw Tom Cruise, he's not budging from Mercedes, right? So, and even Tom Cruise said he wants to do a actual F1 movie. Of course he does. So, and Lewis Hamilton is going to be a huge consultant on it. So I'm all for it. I love the docu-series. I'm again, F1 TV for anyone. If you don't have this, it's a must. They have tons of old documentaries of the old school drivers that are phenomenal, and the progression of the cars. There's just, I love all that old stuff and learning about how it was back in the day and all the advancements and different tracks and stuff like that. So I think it would just be his voice too would be perfect in a documentary of F1.
Oh, it'd be amazing. And you know what? To wrap up the episode, I had a different question lined up, but I threw you some trivia earlier you didn't know about, so I'm going to make that the trivia question. Okay. So don't say the answer, but it ties into Keanu Reeves. It ties into auto racing a little bit as well. So this is the trivia question. If you are watching right now, slide into my DMs on Twitter with the answer, and you will go into a gift certificate for one of our mobile racing hats. We'll send you the hat. I got a stack of like 20 of them here. We'll send you a Mobile One racing hat. And you'll also go into the mix for a draw for about a $100 gift card from Mr. Lube, so you can go get that Mobile One synthetic oil. So all you have to do is slide in my DMs. I will draw a name after every episode. Congratulations to Ryan on Twitter, I think as Yag Collector 68 or something along those lines. Ryan, you answered Valtteri Bottas correctly last week. Watch your DMs. I'll slide in there and get some shipping information. We'll get you a gift certificate and a Mobile One racing hat. Today's trivia question ties into my boy Keanu Reeves. And really, what was a great movie? Don't want to give the movie away because that's the answer to the question. But which late 1980s movie did Keanu Reeves play a drag racer? He was racing drag cars. Which movie was it? Slide into my DMs with that correct answer. The DMs are open all the time. Slide in there at Nielson TSN 60 here on Twitter. Give me the correct answer. You'll go into a draw for that prize, which should be pretty good.
I can hear keyboards typing right now, Dusty. That's great.
Yeah. I hope somebody else knows it. I remember watching that movie as a kid, and I was just like, there were some really funny parts in that movie, and there's some huge, like the younger people, huge stars. Yeah, when they ended up growing up. So great movie.
That's one of the movies where when it's on, I'll end up watching.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Hey, not to give it away, but the one brother who's just a mess. Like just a piece of shit. Sorry, I shouldn't have swore, but just the worst individual possible. So, slide into my DMs and let me know what movie Keanu Reeves played a drag racer in the late 80s. And you will go into the mix for the gift certificate and the Mobile One racing hat. We'll obviously have a Grand Prix to break down in our next episode. Gager, what are you thinking? What's the early thought for you as we head to France here?
Oh, gosh. selfishly, I want Mercedes to kind of dominate this weekend and put everyone on the back foot. These next two races are just going to be crazy, I think, just because the summer break's coming up.
Yes.
So I would like to see that. And I mean, I just for the home race, I'd like to see Alpines finish up. One of those two guys.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Finish in the podium too. That'd be great. Just just change everything. Ferrari, Red Bull off the podium.
Oh man, that would be something we'd have a lot to talk about if that is the case. That's going to do it for another episode of the Pitstop Pals. Gage, I'll talk to you on my radio show tomorrow, and we got two guys in the goalie coming up right away as well. So if you're not yet subscribed to that, make sure you do that as well. And if you've been watching on the live stream here of the Pitstop Pals, make sure you subscribe. Just search Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can track down the Pitstop Pals. And a huge thanks once again to Mobile One and Mr. Lube for hopping on board with us this season, and we're looking forward to breaking down the race this upcoming weekend. Watch for an episode on Sunday or Monday of this upcoming week. Gage, we'll talk to you again shortly, buddy.
All right, buddy.